Thank you, Janine. My name is Felix Kuhlenkamp. I'm the head of security policy at Bitkom, and I'm happy to host this session with you. In August, the German newspaper Spiegel ran a cover story under the headline Q-Day, the day when global security collapses. That might sound pretty unsettling for people outside of the tech bubble, but at Bitkom we've been dealing with this issue and this challenge for quite some time. We have working groups working together on this issue. We have a dedicated task force discussing with experts from industry, research and policies for a quantum-safe future. Today we want to continue this debate here at the Quantum Summit, and to discuss the most pressuring questions, I'm happy to welcome two excellent guests to the stage. First, David Fowler, Vice President, Development and Managing Director at IBM Germany Research and Development, and Ammar Alkassar, Board Member at GovTech Germany. Welcome. Thank you too for joining this discussion. I want to start off with an introductory question. If companies think of migrating to a quantum-safe future, they are often thinking of, well, there's some time until quantum computers are widely available, but there's already the risk of storing and decrypting data later, obviously. So how should companies and organizations prioritize this these two factors with another to come to a solution for themselves?
So let me start, and thanks for the invitation of joining the panel here. I think it's really important to first of all recognize the fact, and Daniela showed it also, there are some mitigations, but first of all I think it's really crucial to recognize the fact that this Q-Day will happen, and it will happen probably faster than we anticipated 2 or 3 years ago. So I think it's really important when thinking about security overall, companies and organizations need to be well aware where are their crown jewels. Because we also heard that from the presentation, and I think also from the publication, that it's an extremely challenging task to make everything soundproof. So you need to have clear data where to start, what are the most important things, and not everything needs to be perfectly secured in the first step. I think that's definitely something that people should have done already. Reality is, in an ever-changing IT landscape, your data is probably outdated, so you need to get started with that and then lay out a plan on how to get there. Where are mitigation strategies? I think that's the most important step to get started.
Yeah, probably just to add to what David said, I think it's interesting. So my role today is I'm from GovTech Germany. But if I go 20 years back when I've been a researcher working on cryptography, it was exactly the same question. And when we see when Peter Shor in 1994 firstly discovered an algorithm using quantum computers to break the fundamentals of what's today public key cryptography. So this is more than 30 years old. So we had a long time working on this, and in the early 2000s, we provided the first algorithms for post-quantum cryptography, and we still, 20 years later, we still don't have a standard. So we have some proposals for standards and working towards them, but still we don't have a standard, and we still have a lot of people feeling that this is something they can still postpone. And I think this is the biggest danger we have. And probably to take one major issue out and to focus on one thing, if you ask me what would be the most relevant thing we need to think about, I think it is the question of accepting and acknowledging that we need to be agile in the way how we deal with cryptography. So we need to accept that probably we will select today an algorithm replacing our traditional algorithms, being able to secure with post-quantum cryptography, but we need to accept that we need an infrastructure which would allow us in 5 years to change it another time. So accepting that we need to be more agile, quicker in replacing algorithms, I think this is something we need to accept to take over. And the second thing, which is very, very tied to that, is that we need to accept also that we will have more costs on the one or other side. I think this is something which is, makes a lot of people struggling. Give you an example. People have been working since 20 years in accelerating TLS protocols, the crypto there, building hardware, whatever, making things more efficient. And now we have algorithms which are resistant against quantum computers, which are less efficient, which have less performance, which have larger key sizes. So it has the feeling that we are making a step back. And I think we need to accept, yes, we are making a step back in terms of performance, but we need to do that because there's no alternative, because there will be the day where we need to replace them. And I think this is also a psychological question, and we need to admit something to be able to go forward on the technical side.
What do you think is stronger, the feeling of losing something like performance or cost efficiently, or maybe the ignorance or the not being aware enough of the possible risk coming towards the organization?
I think both. I think, without blaming anybody, but if I look sometimes on, let's say, my peers on a management level, they still have the feeling, okay, this is not an urgent thing, let us postpone it. And we are dealing that since 20 years, and if you have something you accept that is not critical for tomorrow, you might do that for 50 years. And then it will happen, what you just said. At some time, we will have a complete change, and then we have a real issue. And we know everything is relying on cryptography, our payment system, our finance system, a government. So it is not only some smaller issue for one industry, it's affecting nearly the whole industry. And I will just add one other thing, which is something I think which is also crucial if we talk also on national security and so on. There will be the time where there will be publicly available quantum computers who break the systems we are working on. But I'm pretty sure there will be a time 5 years earlier, probably 10 years earlier, where probably some governments have this ability to do that without announcing it. And this will be a significant challenge for our security. We don't know it. Probably we have China, we have Russia, probably we have the US having such computers, and they're definitely not going to announce them, but they can probably read critical data and influence and manipulate things. And I think this is an additional challenge for us.
Yeah. And just to add to that, that was an interesting point, because everyone is talking about the Q day and how we learn about it. When we learn about it, it's already past. Yeah? And probably not just a few days, but probably a few months. I asked one of our cryptography researcher, when is that thing going to happen? And he answered, I can tell you how we tell that it happened. If somebody is changing and tampering with the Bitcoin root node 0 without breaking any signatures, then it happened. Because you will have to be also recognizing that those governments, those organizations that have that access will not make it public only by going for high-value objectives. And this is when it's too late, and this is the risk we have behind there. It's not just about the good side of researchers publishing their results and everything. Mm-hmm. And I think you also mentioned that a little bit. It's not only about the connectivity encryption like TLS protocols. It's also about business processes like digital signatures. Who's using digital signatures in procurement to validate that you have a signed contract, and then you store it away and have to retain it for 30 years? Are you able to ensure in 30 years, with that risk ahead of us, that that signature has not been tampered with? Is your IT and your business process prepared to exchange that digital signature of thousands and thousands of documents in a validated way in the next years, next month, when new findings come along? I think that's a key question people have to ask themselves.
I really like the perspective on having multiple Q days maybe. That was also what I was thinking when I saw this headline of Spiegel, Q day, the day when global security collapses, as if it would be just one day and everything immediately collapses, but probably there will be waves to it. But let's stick to the business processes that lay behind this. Companies and organizations need crypto agility. They need migration measures to get to a quantum-safe futures. Are there measurable indicators yet that can be used to assess this, for example, for crypto agility yet? And how can companies also address this to the board, for example, if they want to show what they are doing towards a quantum-safe future? How can this be assessed, and what are successful measures for that?
Okay, I think it's, first of all, you mentioned that point about the board, and I think that's extremely important that this is a question of leadership, because this is a top-level risk that we need to deal with. Yeah? It's about risk management in every organization. It's, for me, also a question about openness to innovation and having a good way of critically thinking about innovation, the opportunities that technical innovations bring along, as well as the risks that we have. I made the experience that people just like turn off internally when they hear post-quantum cryptography or these other complex terms, just quantum in it. Quantum is only for the physicists guys in my team, that's expert level. I don't need to deal with the details here. We need to be really aware that innovative technologies, both quantum but also AI, have huge potentials for us as a society, for organizations, but they also bear risks. And this is, in my opinion, a huge opportunity, but also challenge for leadership in all organizations to have a good handle, a good understanding. No, they don't need to be quantum physicists or cryptographers at the end of the day, but to make that part of their business strategy, their risk processes, to think about these things. As you said, it's not the first time something like that happened. It will not be the last time that we have issues ahead of us around cybersecurity, but we still have 20 years later that habit of, yes, it's not going to happen today, so let's talk about this later. And think that is really the thing. When you have that attitude in an organization, I think that's the biggest indicator. If you're not thinking about cybersecurity after the project is done, then I think that's the strongest indicator that you're on a good track.
Do you think that having this crypto agility in the company and this mindset of being crypto agile also gives benefit also in other fields rather than just the quantum safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in what we see also outside of quantum computing or AI-driven processes, IT is getting like a pile of spaghetti. So many things interconnected. We got hyperscalers more in the picture. We got heterogeneous architecture. So it's getting even more complicated without these new innovative technologies to stay ahead of things. Yeah? So it helps you also with that whole mindset of having a wholesome view on the topics, to be agile, not base your architectural decisions on fundamentals that are 20 years old. Yeah? And this is around the IT architecture that you're using, the security assessments that you're using. Sometimes it's also technology that we see in Germany, like internet connectivity. Yes, where we have to recognize some of the fundamentals that we build upon are decades old. And yes, that gives us stability, so we know what we have in front of us to build something on top of it. But we need to recognize that some of these things are inherently insecure or have a risk of being insecure.
Ammar, how do you see the leadership issue of things? And do you think there are certain skills that are necessary in the workforce development to achieve the goals of quantum safe migration?
No, I don't think that we need other leadership mechanisms than we need in software development in general. And I think compared 20 years ago, we are much more agile in the way we do software programming and so on. So the number of hard-coded crypto in the systems is much lower. We still have it in hardware and stuff like that, but in general, they are better. And I think there is an awareness and so on. So there we are on a good way. But I think we need more hard requirements, which need to be requested from the suppliers. For instance, I would, and this is what we are currently considering in GovTech Germany, that all our procurements have a requirement where we say we need to have, at least as a hybrid model, also post-quantum cryptography for the algorithms which are used. We cannot require that for all because we still have interfaces for systems connecting with legacy systems and so on, but we can require that at mandatory for everything which is new. And we can require, and that is something also answering the question about agile, we can require that all crypto, all algorithms included in the software we are buying could be replaced within a couple of days. So that could be a hard requirement, starting with the requirement that we need to have something like in our software bill of materials, all crypto algorithms listed, so that we at least know what are the algorithms which are like. And we need to do that as hard requirements. When we do procurements, we do software buying. And I think this is the next step. For a long time, there has been the excuse, oh, we don't have a standard. We don't have a post-quantum standard. Now we have at least the NIST process concluded. This standard is going to be defined with FIPS. And I'm pretty sure we will have them, we will see them within the next months and year, so that there will be a standard, and even the BSI might have a different one. Starting with one and having the ability to change it would be a hard requirement that we could implement.
Sticking with hard requirements, maybe also from the public side, what do you expect from the German government or the EU in terms of support or requirements regarding the implementation or the transition towards quantum secure cryptography? Are there any things that you would expect from the government to do to enforce that or to enable the companies to?
Absolutely. So exactly what I've said, the government is a big buyer. And if the government puts mandatory requirements saying we need post-quantum cryptography to be included in the product, they will have massive influence on the overall system. This is one side. The other side is in supporting, financially also supporting, for instance, the public source libraries using crypto by building the components or transferring the components used there, like OpenSSL, like others, supporting post-quantum cryptography, and giving some financial support for the next 5 years, supporting exactly the versions, for instance, like OpenSSL, which are already today supporting post-quantum crypto. So they don't need to make a very, very large initiative. I think just putting one or two hard things on the table would be sufficient.
I think also it's important that the public sector is not only giving guidance and regulations, but really acting also as a leader in implementing. Because what you mentioned around, we're doing a step back in performance, for example, that will be only a temporary thing. The more the demand, the more the IT industry will come up with solutions, both with hardware and software tighter aligned, better implementations of the algorithms. But we need that demand to grow, so that IT vendors, open source communities are motivated to really focus on that, improving the stack, and then the topic of performance will also be addressed, as it has been with all other crypto implementations we saw over the last decades.
Do you see maybe by any chance any countries in your experience that set these boundaries and requirements in this environment correctly as a prime example for Germany to maybe take as a role model?
I think there are countries who are trying to be on the forefront. So we have just heard that, for example, Korea is working on that, South Korea is working on that. I know, for example, from the UAE that they have very hard requirements on their public procurements. They are pushing also, they're putting a lot of money in the development of new post-quantum cryptography suites. And I think it's not a question of look, they did more or this country did more. I think it's also a question of collaboration. I think most of the things we don't. If one country says this is our suite, we are going to work with that. It's not going to work, because nearly all of our systems need to be interoperable beyond boundaries. And I think that would be the important thing. So see who has probably did a couple of good things and just try to cooperate with these guys and so on.
Yeah, talking about collaboration and looking at our watch, what immediate actions can the present companies here at the Quantum Summit take home to implement within maybe the next year to come? What collaboration possibilities are there in your perspective, both of you?
I think most important is we need to spread the word, so that all these new innovative technologies have that complexity with it. People don't know enough about it beyond the hype messages from the news. So I think everyone that, for example, sat here or joined us at the Bitkom Summit who knows a little bit more needs to spread that word, because that's something we need to get to common knowledge, to get people behind it, and an organization should also make sure they hopefully have a cybersecurity kind of COE organization that this is also focusing on that. And these organizations, these teams need to have access to the top level decision makers. I think that's really crucial to implement that kind of agility. In the same way, we renovated software implementations and IT implementations several years ago when cloud came along. Yeah? So I think that's the first thing we can do today.
In addition to what David said, I would say hard requirements, put hard requirements and accept that there will be a loss in performance and accept that you probably not get the best solution and be sufficient with a 90% solution. If you don't have a standard today, take the candidates for the standards because it's very likely that there are going to be standards. So don't wait too much, just start and accept that you probably need to change it again in 5 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David and Ammar. Thank you to the audience for joining. I hope we can continue this conversation here at the Quantum Summit throughout the day. I know that the focus of the day is going to focus on quantum security, so I'm happy to have this discussion with all of you and with the guests. Thank you very much.